Hello, it's Ewan Jones. I'm joined today by Philipp Tanzer. He is a men's rights activist and an anti-feminist, and also, I believe, a Christian and a traditionalist as well. And so, in this series of videos, I'm looking at the link between Christianity, traditional gender roles and traditional gender values, and how this will actually help the men's rights movement, and also how the movement of feminism has done a lot to trash traditional gender values and traditional gender roles, and why a lot of the time actually it would be nice to return to that old system. So, Philip, could I get your views on this, on Christianity, traditionalism, and the men's rights movement? And would you agree with my assertion that going back to that old movement, that we had before, for a lot of our past, will actually help the men's rights movement?
I'll get into that in a moment. First, I have to say I usually don't call myself an anti-feminist, even though I wholeheartedly oppose feminism. The reason why I don't call myself an anti-feminist is because, just like with Antifa and anti-vaxxers, I don't like defining myself based on a negative.
Okay, right, yeah.
So even though I do think that feminism is cancerous, I would not define myself as an anti-feminist. I would call myself a pro-humanist, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
always
all good, all
always
good.
having a positive approach to things.
Okay, and just with the other premise that I sort of set up, so looking at how a return to more of a traditional system of gender relations, how that would be beneficial for people here in the UK and elsewhere, and
Mm.
how that would help to promote men's rights.
Mhm. Now, I would I would go one step bigger and I wouldn't say how it benefits men's rights. I would say how does it benefit society, and
Mm-hmm.
it will benefit man as part of society. I think that society as a whole is broken at the moment. I think that women are hugely suffering under the current status quo. Even though they're not aware of it, they think they suffer for other reasons than they really do, in my estimation. I think that there always needs to be a balance between order and structure. Order and chaos in our world. We need some amount of chaos to actually experience change and to be able to learn. I think if nothing is happening, then it's difficult to learn. I mean, why did God give us choice? He could have he could have just forced us into obeying him, or he actually had to create choice for us to be able to decide whether we want to follow him or if we want to follow sin. And I think that order and chaos are representatives of these two energies, and we need both of them to to have choice and to evolve. And I think at the moment we have too much chaos. So I think going back to more order and taking willingly restricting some of our own freedoms, not forced upon us by law or by government, but willingly saying, no, these are freedoms that are negative for me. I think that would be a good way into the future. Sorry, that was a bit convoluted.
That's sort of more of a, I guess, a rejection of liberal values and liberal society, and a return to traditional society with its greater focus on community and on marriage and on, actually, I think that being a way of sustaining the culture.
Well, again, I wouldn't say it's a rejection of liberalism. I would say it is putting liberalism in its place, because it
Mm.
does, I do think it has its place, but at the moment it's so dominant in our society, and traditionalism is almost wiped out to some extent. And you can't have a functioning society without traditional values.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And in terms of my own journey, I was uh, I've been atheist until fairly recently. It was this year that I converted to Christianity, and I think it was like for the last few years I've sensed that I am a traditionalist, and I do want to have a much more, be part of a much more structured society and
Mm.
community as well. And so it was then like seeing the church and thinking, kind of tiptoeing around the edges for a while, and thinking, I kind of want to be doing this, but at the time I didn't really agree with the metaphysical ideas of it. But then it was a case of actually going along and actually finding out more about Jesus Christ and the New Testament and the Bible in its entirety, and finding out more about God, and then just this whole world opening up before me, and stepping inside that, and yeah, I'm from what I'm seeing is that I think it is the lifestyle itself. I think it's incredibly good for us, and I think it's the best, richest quality life that we can lead, and I want other people to realize that actually coming over to this lifestyle is much better than the I'd say you've got the atheist system that has become dominant in the West now, and it seems to me that that system is built upon a this kind of bedrock of do whatever you want, that being the underlying ethos, and from there you get a system of complete individualism, and it just doesn't seem to work because we don't really function that way as complete individuals. If we exist that way, then we have no bonds to one another. There's no honor, there's no truth, there's no community, and I think it's kind of seeing that actually that the more religious way of living is far better, and then from there coming to Christianity and seeing that particular traditional way of living is I figure it's the best way of living of all, and
Mhm.
that was what it's kind of those emotions that brought me to Christianity. So is
Okay.
that similar to your journey, would you say? Or
No, no, not at all. I was born with a very strong connection to God. So I'm not from a practicing Christian family, but even as a little kid, I knew God. I always felt very deeply connected to God, but not very connected to the church, I would say. And I was baptized, and in Germany we have something like called confirmation. So it's similar to communion. You do it when you're a teenager, and I did that, but I didn't go to church very often, only on Christmas. And I would say I very, very much so lived a life in sin. But because of my deep and strong connection to God, I was always protected.
Mm.
So it was almost like there were always angels around me, keeping me from big harm. And looking back, I don't know, this could be an excuse for my behavior, but maybe it's possible that I had to go through these experiences and through this sin and actually come out at the other end and saying, well, maybe it's actually good not to have sex before marriage. Well, maybe you shouldn't watch porn or do porn. Um, maybe homosexuality is in itself sinful, just like promiscuity. So not just homosexuality, but sexuality outside of a relationship. And it's a tricky question. I had situations where I think had sexual experiences with people, in that case men, where I felt the presence of God in that situation. But I don't think that the sexual interaction itself created the presence of God. I think that there was a presence of God despite the sinful action.
Mm-hmm.
So, and instead of sex, it could have also been a hug and just holding a person and making them known that they're not alone. So for me, it was very different. I always knew about God and I was always connected with God, but I lived a very liberal lifestyle. And I think for me, it's the reconnection with traditionalism. And parts of that were always in me. So when I was in the gay community, I always criticized the lifestyle choices within the gay community. And so I was always like a watcher, criticizing what was going on. The same thing with abortion. I always thought that abortion is okay for other people because I grew up in Germany and it was just the status quo that abortion is okay. But in my heart, it felt wrong. So I said, I would never, I think, even if I was a woman, I think, and if I was raped, I would probably think, let something beautiful come out of this horrible experience, and I'm going to show the world that love can grow out of hate or abuse.
It should be noted that that happens in a tiny minority of
course.
like abortions. The vast majority of them are women or girls going along to the abortion clinic and then deciding
Sure, of
from
course.
there.
No, I intentionally chose the most extreme case. So even in the most extreme case, I held the view, I think I still wouldn't do it, but I still thought that everybody else should have the right to do it. And now I'm at a different point. I think that it's not good. I think that it shouldn't be a normal practice unless the life of the mother is in acute danger.
So throughout your liberal phase, you felt a connection to God, and that had continued
Always.
from your childhood, and that was
Always.
there throughout your life. But
Yeah,
then,
and that protected me.
but then you saw that it was a sinful existence, and that you needed to move to a more traditional existence, and so you started to
Well,
change. Then was it?
well, even while I was in these circles, I criticized these circles. So I would say I went down into the cesspit and said, "Hey guys, you're taking a lot of drugs. You don't care for each other. You have so much unprotected sex." So, for example, I was German Mr. Leather, the official representative of the German fetish community. And while I was German Mr. Leather, I didn't have sex. I lived in celibacy because sexuality felt wrong to me. And then later on, after that time of being the representative of a sexual subgroup, I started experiencing sexuality, and then I became a porn actor. But it was a very short time and a very intense time where I dove into that sinful behavior. But even before that, there was always something inside me warning me and saying, this is dangerous. This is not. I always felt that there was something off. But society as a whole told me that it's perfectly fine and that you should do that and that you should make these experiences. And I have to say, I felt that there was something wrong with me not enjoying these superficial sexual interactions. And I would say now I know why. Now I understand. And I wish I could go back to my younger self and say, listen more to your heart, and maybe listen more to certain Christian teachings. Unfortunately, the Christian teachings nowadays are so liberal that they are actually not a real guidance. I have
Mm.
to look up American Christian preachers to actually find the right attitude that works well for me.
Okay, so within the sort of general UK Christian movement, it does seem as though a lot of the churches promoting, or it's a church of affirmation that is just promoting kind of any type of sexual behavior and LGBT and all of that, and
Yep.
I think that there is an issue here, and I mean, if you want to look at it from a purely sociological perspective, you see that within these relationships there are no children, and so there's no connection between sex and childbirth.
Mhm.
Whereas, if you look at heterosexual relationships and one's really heterosexual relationships until pretty recently, the 1960s, when the contraceptive pill was made available and safe, effective abortion was made available. Until
Mhm.
that point in time, there was a high chance for a lot of, for fertile women to that they would become pregnant after sex, and so
Yep.
there was this real impetus on them to actually try to get to trust the man before they had sex with him. And it seems that since the 1960s, that attitude has gone out of fashion quite a bit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we saw the rise of hookup culture and this new hedonistic society, and this attitude that was, kind of given to a lot of young women and young men, that it was great to go out to bars and to nightclubs and to get wasted and take lots of recreational drugs, and then start making out with someone that you don't really know, and then go back to theirs and have sex with them. And so I think a lot of people were set up, young people, in this manner by this lifestyle. And I think there's been a lot of victims, who have had, not especially great lives as a result of entering into this hedonistic lifestyle and dating culture. And yeah, I mean, for
And it's
me,
and it's and it's
yeah, go
not
ahead.
just and it's not just them. It's also everybody else. Because, so for example, for me, I don't like one night stands at all, and I'm only looking for a serious relationship. But that's almost impossible nowadays because everything is working through Tinder. And especially
Mm-hmm.
where I live, it's almost impossible to meet somebody that works for you. And the so by society and more people working in um, going into this hedonistic lifestyle, you make it harder and harder for other people that want real connection, because there are very few people left over that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
that take their time.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, it was like initially when I was in school, I was sort of going in, in both directions at once, like in the moral direction and in the hedonistic direction. Then
Mm.
I got to university, and the hedonistic direction, it won for the next, I'd say, 5 to 7 years.
Mm.
And like, I mean, well, to be honest, I've always been a disaster with women. So I'll put that out there, but not concentrate on that one too much. But then I got into a lot of the recreational drugs and into going out a lot with and drinking lots of alcohol. And and like initially it was good, it was really good fun, but then it's the it's the 5 year projection of where that behavior leads. And with that, for me, it ended up with initially cannabis psychosis. And
Okay.
then after that, it was just really bad binge drinking. And, ended up with blackouts and so on from doing that.
Okay.
And so then, it was a case of actually trying to fix myself after that. And luckily, initially, I found the Jordan Peterson content. And
Yeah.
so that I thought that was especially good because it was just telling me that I it was basically my morality that was at fault, and that
Yeah.
I needed to sort that out and actually pick myself up. And yeah, it's been a bit of a journey for the last few years from there to eventually to Christianity. And I think now recognizing that we are a tribal species, and that we do need that local community, people that we see, who are part of the same community, and they've got our backs and we've got their backs. And it's just and you're sober the entire time, and you are reaching towards Jesus Christ as well. And you're just trying to actually live well. And so, I think overall it's a much more healthy way of living. This generally accepting Christianity, and also I think moving away from the hedonism, especially in my case, the drug and alcohol use, and
Yeah.
I'm really glad to be away from that. So, yeah, was
Well,
that ever an issue for you, or?
never. And that's one of the things where I really felt protected. I've never taken drugs in my life. Never ever. I didn't drink alcohol. I didn't smoke. As I said, I didn't have sex for most of my adult life, I would say. So I was very well protected. I'm pretty sure that if I had taken drugs, I would probably not be here anymore. I would probably be dead. Like in 1 year, I lost 5 of my colleagues from the porn industry to drug overdoses or suicide.
Wow, yeah.
It's not a healthy environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the same thing in big parts of the LGBT community, also big parts of the party scene, like the drug scene. There are so many people like just killing themselves or having an overdose because they're lost. So it's a very sad lifestyle, and I do think that these people are okay. Spiritually speaking, I do think that demons attach themselves to us. I think that drugs and depression, certain mental health issues, I think these I don't know if that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if these were actually outside entities that are like sucking away our life energy.
It felt like that to me, yeah.
So, and I think that I was protected by angels,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was a shield around me, that just something in me always said, no, that's bad for you. You do not touch that. And I was at big like sex parties where everybody was on drugs, and I was just there dressed exactly like these guys, dancing the whole night, not taking a single drug, not interacting sexually with anybody. And I knew that I was there almost like, or for me it was almost like a war field, like
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by danger. And I was like, no, I'm a beacon of light here, and I'm
Yeah,
sticking
yeah.
to my guns. And for me that was definitely kind of a training for what's to come. And I would say that what we're experiencing now, what I'm doing now, is what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
I was When I was working as a DJ, my DJ name was, that's the German word Krieger, which means warrior, DJ warrior. And because I was always fighting for what's right. And I think being in the men's rights movement, it's the first time ever that I'm really attaching myself to a movement. That has never happened before. But I think it's a absolutely righteous cause. There is
Mm-hmm.
nothing negative about the men's rights movement. There are some people that are broken and that are that have negative energies, but that's not the sentiment of the movement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's quite an intense situation for that you were describing, going to the I guess the party scene and there being lots of degeneracy and drug use around, and then you managing to stay away from that. But I think it's good training, but I mean, it's also it is a tough situation to be in because when it's surrounding you and everyone else is doing it, you do feel that the peer pressure to also engage in the whatever's going on in with the peers and so on. So
And I definitely lost. I mean, as I said, for like three,
mhm,
4 years, I did do a lot of online dating, one night stands, a lot of like meaningless sex, and that was exclusively gay sex back then. When I
mhm,
started dating women again, age 32, with women, for me, it's completely the complete opposite. I can't have one night stands.
mhm.
I can only connect to a woman when I'm in a relationship, which, to be honest, doesn't make it easier to actually meet somebody. I find it incredibly hard. If I was in America, I would probably try to become part of a Christian community so I could find a partner who has similar values to me. But here it's almost impossible.
Do you have a good church community now? Is it?
No, no.
Y-
I left. I used to go to church for the last 2.5 years here in my village, but um, I really like the congregation. The people are great, but our minister is very liberal. She's very anti-Tory. So she's a political minister in many ways, and I don't want my minister to be either for Tory or against Tory or for Trump or against Trump. I want my minister to be a minister,
mhm.
apolitical. And yeah, so she's very political, and she's too liberal for my taste. And with the COVID restrictions, she didn't allow us to sing, and I went back to our church service, Sunday service, twice. The first time, one person was allowed to sing in front of the congregation. The second, and that was me, I went to the front and sang as loud as I could, and I had tears running down my face because the whole situation was so wrong. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel worse like in East Germany. My dad's from East Germany, and this is definitely worse what we're doing right now. And then the next week, she said, unfortunately, nobody's allowed to sing anymore. And then I just got up and left because I couldn't take it anymore. So now I stopped going to church and I'm following online services. There was a minister on Stephen Crowder's show recently. Stephen Crowder's show is called Louder with Crowder. It's a conservative comedy show. And there was a minister and him and Stephen, they were talking about faith, and I really liked what this man had to say. They were talking about masculinity and traditional gender roles and the importance of family in our society. And then I looked up his website. It's called realfaith.com, and I started watching that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty harsh, actually. That I'm guessing there's not a whole load of choice as well where you are in terms of other churches and so on.
No, my village is just 300 people.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
have one church in my village, which is Church of Scotland, which are all very, very liberal, I would say. And in the next village, once a month, there used to be a service from the Episcopalians, which I thought was much better, and I really enjoyed that. But still quite liberal. But they don't have anything now after COVID.
No,
And
yeah.
I would say, especially in the Episcopalian one, the average age I would say is maybe 16, 68. That's the average age. So I I don't mind going to church with people that are far older than me, but it does feel like a dying church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sort of want the rejuvenation in the community as well, and
Mm.
to see younger members, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the whole COVID thing has been an absolute disaster, and I think it's incredibly heinous what is going on, because I just I mean, if you look at our evolutionary history as a species, we are a tribal species. It's who we are. We've sung together as a group at least since we were Homo erectus. That's going
Mm.
back 1.9 million years. And we would gather around the campfire then. And, we would practice our songs then. And it's been the same ever since, and that's such an integral part of who we are. And, and
Did you watch my ICMI video?
I did, yeah, yeah.
So, and I talked about this men's retreat where we were in the forest,
Yeah, yeah.
like doing stuff, sitting around the campfire, exactly what you're talking about. And God, it's like the connection that you feel. It's
Mhm.
it's out of this world. And to be honest, if when I have a family, I that's one thing that I really want to focus on, that we sit together when we have breakfast and dinner, and that we talk about our day, and that we really connect. And I would say there are no phones allowed on the
Yeah, yeah,
table.
yeah. No, it's I mean, yeah, exactly. And I think it's yeah, it's just those behaviors that are so important to us. And and I think, yeah, just that, like, having that group around you who, like, because I go there and there's people I meet who I think are less fortunate than me, and it's offering them support, and them, also kind of rejoicing in the love of Jesus, and you're able to bond over that, and to create that community. And as you're saying about the ICMI talk, and going out into the wilderness and being around the campfire, I think it's, yeah, again, just an incredibly important activity that helps us reconcile ourselves to other people. And you do get that incredible sense of peace and of contentment from doing that. I felt it really strongly, actually, when I went to Nepal a few years ago, and did a trek there. And each evening we would be at the tea house, and we would all be around the hearth, and it was usually just like a log burner in the middle of the room, and everyone would be sat around it. And I mean, you could have a book out or something, but a lot of the time I just enjoyed just sitting there, being quite quiet in everyone's presence. And that was just again just one of those feelings that gives you this sense of contentment and fullness. And
Yeah.
then I think if you compare that to the individualism of liberal society, and also all of its all of the other a lot of the other things that we're seeing in this new technological society, like the mobile phones with Facebook app and all of that. And
Yeah.
it seems to get you away from that sense of contentment, and puts you into a much more anxious position, where you're thinking, like, I don't know, your brain's just whirring, and you're on a really unsteady path, and it's just not so good for you, and so on. I
So
was, yeah, go
so,
ahead, yeah.
so now at the moment, that to me is a struggle. I isolate myself more and more for
Hmm.
libertarian reasons. I hate the COVID groupthink. I don't go to our local shop anymore. At all, pretty much. I always, because I have to wear a mask. So I drive 2.5 hours and go to the next Tesco where I don't wear a mask, and I don't care if people look at me as strangely or something. I just ignore it. And I have to say, I had actually quite good experiences there. Last time I was in Tesco, there were these two old women working as cashiers, and I had we had so much fun with each other, and we were laughing. And I think they were really appreciative of seeing my face and seeing my smile and actually having real human interaction. And they they were glowing, and I'm like, wow, this is. But they weren't afraid. They they
Hmm.
they didn't seem to be COVID afraid. So, but yeah, I'm
Were they wearing masks?
no, they were behind
Okay.
the plastic shields, but I was actually
Hmm.
standing on their side of the plastic shield where I was packing the stuff, and there was just no fear. It was absolutely wonderful. It was a beautiful situation. But yeah, I'm not going to my church community anymore. There is sport happening here in my village again, but socially distanced sport. So I'm not going to that. There was the cinema came up, like we have a mobile cinema. I didn't go to that because you have to wear masks. So I'm
Hmm.
actually self-isolating. I'm kind of doing exactly what the government wants us to do. And by me not going to these things, that to me is actually a form of rebellion. But while I'm rebelling, I'm doing exactly what the government wants.
Yeah, they've kind of got us in a bit of a bind by enforcing all of these rules that either result in you just staying at home all the time, or otherwise you have to go along with the group conformity, of wearing the mask. And
Yeah,
I think it's going in the direction, isn't it, of having the inoculation, and then having to get the app as well, that shows that you've had the jab, and then you'll be allowed to, I don't know, go on a plane, or go to restaurants or something. And
yeah.
yeah,
And I don't know.
I think it's just on a real downhill spiral at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I I'm not aware of it, but see, I'm at a point where I would love to join a group that rejects that in some ways reject law and order. In America, you have these groups that um, only focus on the Constitution now, like true constitutionalists that say that all that the COVID rules and certain restrictions are unconstitutional, and they just don't accept them as law and order. And I'm slowly getting to a point where I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was always a very, very law-abiding citizen, and I loved paying my taxes. And like there was actually, I was caught for not paying my taxes while I did my porn stuff, because I did the porn stuff in America and I didn't like pay taxes in Germany, blah blah blah. And I was caught,
Hmm.
and I had to pay quite a bit of money. And to be honest, I was really happy about that. Hey, baby. I was happy about getting caught because I did the wrong thing. I was lying. And I thought, yeah, it's okay that I was caught because I didn't obey the law. And now I have to pay the price for it. And after that, I just paid my taxes all the time. But now I'm at a point where I'm like, what the fuck are you doing with my tax money? I
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
what the government is doing. You're keeping me from keeping my shop open sometimes. You throw away money because of a lockdown that I don't want, that a lot of people don't want. So I almost feel like I want to become a criminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think it's pretty hideous, what's happened, and yeah, it is a massive abuse of power by the government here in the UK and all round. And yeah, I don't see any easy solutions to what people should do. I think if you can find a community, obviously in some places it's harder to do that, especially when there's less people around, because
Yeah,
you're limited in the number of communities that you can join in that situation.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it is difficult at the moment, and I think a lot of people are suffering with it. Um, I did want to,
And in the
yeah, go,
UK, in the UK, you don't have a tradition of libertarianism, really.
no,
Not
no,
like in America, where you have people that where you have a proper movement of libertarian-minded people. You don't have that here in the UK. In in Germany, actually, there is something like it, but I don't know too much about them. I only know that they are definitely on the right or far right of the
mm.
spectrum. They're called Reichsbürger.
Okay,
So
sure, sure.
yeah, so it's not about like the Third Reich. They go back to the emperor's time, so
Okay,
they reject all of like the democratic
yeah.
Germany. They say no. We actually go back to the emperor's time.
Which emperor is that? And just to give me
Kaiser, was it
what
maybe
von
Wilhelm?
Wilhelm? Yeah,
Wilhelm. Yeah, it should be
so
Kaiser Wilhelm.
the one who he sort of started the First World War, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I think
Okay,
it
right,
would be
right.
Kaiser Wilhelm. Yeah.
Okay, right, right.
But I don't know a lot about these guys.
I
But to
see.
me, it sounds a little bit like what some Americans are doing, where they, because in Germany it's very hard to own guns, and these
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Reichsbürger, they, for example, they collect guns and own guns, and they don't accept the law of the land, so to speak.
Right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see. I
So,
see.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of with a, I think I'm with a church community, and we're in, in Oxford, and it's really good, and really strong community, and
nice.
yeah, not, we kind of reject a lot of the coronavirus stuff and so on, and
Wow.
I think right now it's a case of if you can find somewhere like that, then that's just really good. And I do feel that yeah, I mean, just the way that they're doing all of the restrictions and all of the lockdown stuff, it's a kind of, it's all a deliberate mind fuck for everyone,
Oh yeah.
and it's designed to
It's to
separate
break.
people from
It's
each
to
other.
break people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And, to isolate everyone. And then
Mm.
I mean, like when we were a hunter-gatherer species, our reaction to being isolated in the, back on the African savannah was that our anxiety levels increased. And that
Yeah.
soon turned into terror and paranoia. And so that's what happens, nowadays when you isolate people, and like when you isolate a lot of kids from each other. And now we're seeing, yeah, with the lockdown, massive increases in depression, anxiety, suicide.
Yeah.
And I'd say, this is the same reason we're seeing an increase in all of these mental health conditions as well, generally, with a lot of the teenagers as well who are growing up now, is that they are in this fractured world where
Mm.
there is no community, and instead there's just individualism and the kind of narcissistic celebrities and so on. and you don't get that sense of community from there, which is just so essential for
Yeah.
us. So, you know, I just think we do need to try and to refine that. And
Do you think that's possible? Do you think that it's possible to bring back values to this society, to this society, with all the structures are in place right now? I mean, we saw what is happening with the American election, and with how the media was reporting on certain things. And I would say that reality is being constructed nowadays, and we definitely live in a time of being surrounded by propaganda 24/7. So the question is, do you think that change is possible without the structure that we have right now first falling apart?
I mean, for me, it's I think it is in the process of falling apart. I think the society is in free fall at the moment, and for me, the lockdown was what helped me to find Christianity, and you know, and then like I guess at the start of the lockdown, before then, I engaged more in the political discourse, but now it's become so horrifically bad, you know, the political discourse now and the level of propaganda, that I almost avoid it completely. And you know, now just go to church and focus on the Bible and on community. And so it's I think, you know, I'm hoping that more people are pushed in that direction by what's going on, and just see that the it's because I think we've kind of had the reveal of the monster now. You know, we've had the
Yeah.
reveal of Satan as being,
Yeah.
you know, force that is on the TV screen, and, you know, is doing all of this work in the background, and, you know, that controls the society. And so I think that what people have to do in order to save themselves is just reject that completely, and I think go back to traditional Christian society. And I'd say, you know, the other religions as well. I'm sure there's some people who will be going back to other traditional religions, and I'd say it's all better than watching the TV.
Yeah.
You know, any of them. And because
How
you know, you're
how is your emotional well-being changed, since you've started focusing more on faith?
um I think it's the best it's ever been.
Hmm.
And I, I think it's just that sense of, I guess, you know, that that sense of community has helped me to reconcile myself with the rest of mankind. And
Yeah.
and also, you know, the I guess the understanding that Jesus died for my sins, and the mission that I have to try and better myself, and to try and, you know, I can't stop my sins. That would be impossible, but just to reduce them as much as I can, and in doing that, I lead a better life. And so that is, it's really helped. And to be honest, I was trying to lead a good life before, but I think this has helped me, you know, tremendously in terms of doing that.
Mm.
And the other positive thing I think I was doing before was I quit drinking. Like the ICMI 2019 was the last time I drank, and so
Okay.
I've not had any alcohol since then, and I've sort of been
That's when
concentrating.
I started drinking,
Okay.
roughly
Nice.
around that time.
Um, and I mean, I ran my first marathon not too long after that, and
Uh-huh.
so you know, I've been concentrating on the running as well. And so, you know, I think that's a great activity for us to do, and it does. It also helps with that sense of well-being. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I'm just trying to at the moment have the sort of you know, the Christian life, and also bring in the running as well, and then just trying to do a bit of work on top of that, and mainly, you know, I'm trying to stay away from any arguments on social media, and
Yeah.
generally stay away from any TV screen that's blaring out its rubbish. And
I
I
don't have
think by
TV.
doing that, you get a bit better. You know, it's a
I
general
don't have.
better feeling you get.
I don't have TV, so I avoid that. But I watch a lot of YouTube clips, so that keeps my
Sure.
anxiety level high. I've got
Which
two.
YouTube clips is it?
Oh, I watch a lot of. I watch Tim Pool a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So predominantly Tim Pool, to be informed, because he's such a fence sitter that you do get to hear both sides. I like that. I watch some Steven Crowder, then obviously some men's rights related stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But it's not good for my mental well-being, I have to say. I watch too much of that stuff. But yeah, I've got two questions. First of all, how long do you think it will take before Carl Benjamin Sargon will come out as a Christian? He mentions Christian values a lot lately, and I mean his second child was just born, and I almost can't see him not having his children baptized. It, for me, the way he talks about them, it just feels like the right thing to do. Even if he doesn't become a Christian, it feels like he should give his children the option to be Christians. Yeah. So that was the first question. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Hopefully soon. So for that one.
And the second one is, I recently saw Brian from the Honey Badgers posting something on Facebook, and it was about how can men's rights activists be on the liberal side. There is no connection between being a men's rights activist and being on the liberal side. That's kind of what he said. If you support the liberal side, you are actually fighting against us. And to a large extent, I have to agree with him. What is your opinion?
Yes, I think so. I think that there is a with the movement of feminism, I think it's part of the greater liberal and hedonist movements that emerged in the 1960s. And it was this, women were kind of sold this snake oil that they'd now be given freedom and that they could be independent from men. And, what's the phrase? Their sisters are doing it for themselves and so on. And, so now they had the freedom to go around and, to take loads of drugs and, drink till they blacked out and started throwing up everywhere. And then, having promiscuous sex and so on. And, they were now the masters of their own destiny. But it is like, I think, the two genders are absolutely beholden to one another. And that, in the traditional society, that gets the best out of both genders. And it's and if you've got the traditional gender roles as well of men are dominant in the public sphere and women are dominant in the domestic sphere, then I think in that situation it's there's a great complementary relationship that exists there, where men, we are the disposable gender. We are, in terms of our physiology, we're stronger, and faster. And we're also designed for intensity of action, whereas women are designed to make babies, and they're not designed so much for intensity of action.
Not make babies, have babies.
They're designed to have babies. Yes, yeah, good correction there. And so I mean, they're also, they're not designed for intensity of action. they're not designed to suddenly spring into action and save the day as men are. And so that there is that just that way that we interact, and it works on a really old genetic level. And they're the protected gender and we're the disposable gender. And I think from there we're the leaders of society, and they are the ones who just run the local community, and they're the social glue as well that keeps the community together. And there's so many interactions, like I have probably barely scratched the surface there. It's just like millions of years of the two genders interacting with each other and forming this complementary relationship where they are the ones who they do the complementary work, whereas men are working out in the frontiers. And they're the ones who, back when we were hunter-gatherers, who were taking on the lions and who were doing the subsistence hunting and so on. And so I think then feminism came along and turned that all on its head, and it kind of created this upside down world. And really, ever since the 60s, I'd say, is we've been living in this upside down world. And there is this need to get back to a traditional society in order to fix that problem, and in order to have a society where we are actually able to get along with each other. And I just don't think you get that in any kind of liberal society. I think it's the complementary relationship that exists in a traditional society. That is a system whereby men and women are actually able to get along with one another. And just to add to that as well, certainly here in the UK, we've had the Christian religion. It came in with the Roman Empire, and it's been the biggest religion in these lands ever since. And it's always served us well, and it's such an integral part of our culture and history. And it's the same all over Europe, all over Christendom. And so it's this like absolutely vast expanse of culture that we're tapping into, and this incredible sort of system of morality where you consider God, where you consider Jesus, where you think, gee, I have to work, I have to function in a really virtuous way. Otherwise, the Lord will see what I'm doing and will see that I'm screwing up in this or that way. And so, I think that system is, I think it's really essential as a way of making us honest with ourselves. And that's how we're able to actually fix ourselves throughout our lives. To actually understand that we are sinners, and we are broken, and we do need to follow Jesus in order to fix ourselves and to actually do good work. And so, I think it's a combination of the two, the religion of Christianity and the traditional system. And, within that structure, I think, the people of the UK, of all of Europe, all of Christendom, we were able to build a pretty good society, as a result of having that foundation. And it's a society that lasted a long time, and it's always served us. And I think if we're to have any future, then we need to go back to that. So absolutely, I'd say traditional values are essential, and liberal values are, it's a bad idea.
I think that liberal values are needed, but they should not be dominant in society. I think they should be around as ideas, but they should not drive the car, so to speak. I think a strong foundation, which needs to be traditionalism and conservatism, needs to be the basis of every society. I actually said that the Western cultures, and I used the example of Germany, um, we don't have a cultural immune system anymore because we lost our values. So if other cultures come into our country, um, they can't respect our culture because we have none. We don't respect our culture, so
Mm-hmm.
therefore other cultures that are coming in, they don't even know what to assimilate to because there is nothing there. Um, and I think that if we had stronger Christian values and stronger traditional values, it would be much easier for other cultures to actually coexist with us in our countries. I think that, for example, Muslims have a much bigger problem with the liberal hedonistic lifestyles than with Christianity. Overall, the big religions have pretty much similar values, I would say, not the same, but similar values in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point actually, and so you think certainly a return to in Germany to Christian society is needed, and would you say that also more of an appreciation of um, I guess the great expanse of German and Bavarian history as well is that's also worth bringing back and preserving?
The, I think a return to Christianity is incredibly difficult because it's so unhip. I think the first step will be a return to nationalism or
Hmm.
national identity, and out. So first you have to appreciate your tribe again. Then with after you start to appreciating your tribe and actually saying, oh, actually I'm part of a tribe, you have to start valuing the culture of that tribe again. So you have to look at um, great works of poetry and art and the culture of your land without disrespecting the cultures of other lands. That's the weird thing that people say, oh, just because I love my land, it means that I hate other lands. No, because I respect my culture, I can respect the culture of other lands because I know how important culture is.
Hmm.
So recognize your tribe, recognize the culture of your tribe, and then understand that Christianity created this culture and this tribe. Without Christianity, this culture is impossible.
Hmm.
And I think, for example, we mentioned Carl Benjamin before. He's a cultural Christian.
Hmm.
He he just hasn't made the step towards the spiritual aspect of it, but he's a cultural Christian. And I think that first we have to get people used to the cultural Christianity again and make make them aware everything you like about your country, everything you like about society actually comes from Christian values, because
Hmm.
Christianity has been shamed and deconstructed for such a long time that I think first you have to show people the benefits of it, and then you can start talking about Jesus. Um, at the moment, when you start talking about Jesus, for most people, it's like talking about the Loch Ness monster.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that there is that that issue, and I think if I personally, if I'm talking to an unbeliever, then it's a case of probably just selling them the idea that actually we are a tribal species, and
Mhm.
saying that the hedonistic system that kind of breaks us down and separates us from one another, and then
Yeah,
it gives us all of these extra vices and they're kind of masters, that we have, and so then we're enslaved to all of these vices, and
yeah,
so it's not a great place to be in, and this system is a way of getting it's a way of getting away from all of that, from that bad way of living to a better space, and I guess, yeah, it's always kind of works for us as I think that's a good way of getting in, to that system. I did
And
want to,
it's a huge source of emotional stability.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
People forget that if you don't believe that there is a higher meaning, then
Hmm.
nothing makes sense. And
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
don't get about the atheists. The atheists say, "Oh yeah, well you believe in human laws." Well, these human laws are really just laws of Christianity written into secular laws. It's the
Hmm.
exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did want to because you brought up I think it was a German culture as well,
Mm,
and I think one of the things that has happened generally in the West, and is okay. So when when they refer to German culture, there's a lot of focus on this individual single political party from the 1930s to 1940s and their
okay.
leader. And there's not that much focus in the West, certainly, I'd say, on a lot of the rest of the history of, of the German lands. And so I'm not a massive expert in it, but I do see that, that they, like, it was a bustling, thriving, like metropolis, all of these lands for thousands of years before that point. And I see that there's a lot of history there, and there's generally a lot of stories and a lot of heroes and villains and all of
Mm.
that from all of that period. Um, but then it seems that what's happened, certainly I'd say by the left wing, is that they now use the analogy of Hitler to criticize everything right wing and everything nationalist and everything populist. You're exactly like this one example from history.
Hitler was left
Everyone is
wing.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
Hitler was left wing.
Yeah,
He
I
was
know,
a
I know.
socialist. So
Uh-huh.
it's yeah. When I think about German culture, I don't think about the 30s at all. To be honest, what I think about is the Brothers Grimm and
Mhm.
beautiful music, uh, classical music. Beautiful art. That's what I think about when I think about German culture. The the 30s was really the 30s were really a destruction of culture, and actually before that already the 20s were a destruction of culture, and then the 30s, the Third Reich, were a reaction to that. There
Mhm.
was a lot of hedonism and a lot of destruction of beauty happening in the 20s, especially in Berlin, where art was deconstructed, where social norms were deconstructed. And Germany was at a very dark place in the 20s, really.
Mhm.
There
Mhm.
was no structure. We had no dominant political parties. It was the Weimar Republic, where it was chaos. You
Mhm.
had a lot of different opinions, none of them were dominant, and it was like a cacophony of opinions and directions. And then Hitler came and gave them a direction, and I'm actually terrified of us moving into a similar direction now,
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
with all the leaders failing us, and society, like unemployment is going to go up, it's going to be ridiculous, and nobody's going to trust politicians anymore, nobody's going to trust, nobody's going to have hope in our future anymore. And that can go either way. That can lead to somebody extremely nationalistic stepping up and leading people into a very dark path,
Mhm.
or globalists coming in and saying, "We're gonna save you." So I'm terrified that out of what is happening now, a pseudo savior is going to come up, either globalist or extreme nationalist, and manipulating people into a very dystopian future. That's my fear.
I mean, there's no shortage of pseudo saviors on the globalist side at the moment, and
Yeah,
yeah, it is going in a really dark direction, and I sort of I kind of want more people to open their eyes to what's happening, and I really, I'm not sure if you've seen it. I really like the Computing Forever content
yeah, of
by
course. Yeah,
Dave Cullen on this.
yeah,
I think it's really honest, and it's not, some of the fanciful content I find is less useful because like it's just speculation and so on, whereas
yeah,
this very clearly focuses on the World Economic Forum and what they're doing, and
yeah.
what the greater plan is. And yeah, I mean, it's completely terrifying what the plan is at the moment, and I think yeah, we're all kind of under this impending shadow at the moment. So um, I think yeah, it is quite a dark time. I'd agree with that, and I sort of I don't know. For me, I just guess right now I'm trying to just trying to find the community and so on, and trying to live my life well. And I do feel with coming to Christianity, and just seeing that was the as you said, I think that's the movement that grounds us, that actually gives us our morality, and that allows us to constantly rejuvenate our morality. Because we will screw up during our lives. We make horrible mistakes, and it's that kind of brings us back to this humble position of just admitting that we're sinners and that
Yeah.
we need to do better. And and I sort of I do feel with the when I started with the anti-feminist movement, one of the things with that kind of irks me about it for a long time was that it was only focused on the problems in society that were being
Mhm.
caused by the movement of feminism, and it didn't seem to have much of a solution focused mentality to it, and so I was troubled by, and I still am by, certainly I think the MGTOW content is quite nihilistic, and I think there's a lot of ideas there that are quite dark and are destructive, and I think there's some other problems as well, like sort of the general, I suppose I'd say, complaints about women being crazy and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, they sometimes do get a bit that way, but equally, I also have my own problems as well. And so it's it's kind of actually admitting, saying, yeah, like, other people are weak and vulnerable and they make mistakes, and it's the
Mm.
same for me. And we do need to have that sense of realization about it. And
But would you not say that within the manosphere movement that they call out their own behaviors?
what the MRAs?
Also, MGTOW and TradCons. I would say that there is a very strong thing of if you choose the wrong partner, it's your fault. And
Yeah,
these
yeah, yeah.
are the things that you have to do to have a positive relationship. I would say that a lot of people in the manosphere do hold men accountable while heavily criticizing women. So that's why I let them get away with it. If they criticize both sides, I'm like, fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah,
At least you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
just blaming one side.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with that, and but I suppose I think that the problem is that what one of the issues, certainly with the feminist system, is that I do think women have been set up by this system that promotes them being quite resentful, and
Mhm.
also at the same time going into a kind of hedonistic, like negative behavior spiral of drinking, making immoral decisions, and at the
Yeah,
same time then blaming men for all of the
sure.
problems in the world. And I think the way out of that is to have a better moral system and to encourage them to come along to that. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we need to do is it is just so that the genders can reconcile themselves to the other gender. Is to I think join. I'd say join Christianity. Come back to traditional society and
Yeah,
be part of a community. And then if you do that, then I think you just get a better sense of peace and contentment, and
I
also
agree.
generally the Jordan Peterson advice I'd say is pretty good. Clean up your room. Focus on your own faults, and if
Mm.
you start doing that, then slowly your life will get better, and you'll get to one point where you're thinking, actually, life's all right. It's not too bad, and yeah. So I sort of I think it is. I don't know. For me, it was good to actually come to a solution focused way of living, and
Yeah,
I sort of had a problem. I think with even though I think it's really good to actually focus on men's rights and to look at the problems of feminism. All the problems that it's causing. What's happening with rape culture and with men who are like destroyed by the divorce industry, and
yeah,
the feminization of the workplace as well. I think is an absolute disaster. But then at the same time kind of have this focus on morality as well, and on living your
yeah.
life well. And a lot of your energy should be going to living your life well. And then
I agree.
I think you just start to uh, you kind of become a better person from there if you're focusing on that more so, and probably if you have less focus on the I suppose solving all of the problems in society. So yeah, I mean that's kind of my answer to that one. But I think that's most of the stuff. Was there anything? Oh, actually, there was one thing I wanted to talk to you about. Was the when you in your video for ICMI, you described going to this. It was this retreat for men, and
Yeah,
it was out in the wild, and so I think there was some. I guess it was a sort of rites of passage that you went through, and it just seemed really interesting. That story. Would you care to just go through that and to just describe how it made you feel afterwards?
well, it was an event organized by a guy called Darren Dog. He was at ICMI 2019 in London. That's where I met him, and he organized it with two other guys. And so there were three teachers and 10 men. And during the course of 5 days, we learned things like building proper Native American bonfires, stalking, not the creepy kind of stalking, the other kind. Um, we learned some martial arts, like looking at our own energy. We also did like a sweat lodge, and we had one initiation ritual where we were standing in the middle of the forest at night in March naked and pretty much talking to our roots, talking to our ancestors and where we came from. And yeah, so
So you were
connect.
talking to the trees, to the ground, was it?
Well, we were standing in a circle, and we could say what we wanted to say in the circle, and then we were sent into further into the forest by ourselves. We were supposed to find a tree, sit down, and pretty much address what we needed to address, um, in that presence, so to speak. And then we came back together, and it was obviously freezing cold, and then we
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
warmed each other, and then they started a fire. There was like a pile of wood piled up, and then they lit a fire, and we were standing around the fire, and it was very, very intense. It was really good. And
Mm.
in some ways, it reminded me of my time back in the military, but with obviously a much more spiritual connection. And I I would definitely recommend every man to have an experience like that, and I would definitely recommend for fathers to take their sons to something like that. And there was actually a father-son team
Mm-hmm.
there at the gathering, and we might be doing one in January with Darren and the other guys. So up here in Scotland.
Oh
So
wow. Yeah, that looks really, really interesting. And yeah, I think that there is something about that of doing a kind of rites of passage ceremony where that it is actually, there's some difficulty to it. And
yeah,
where say you are freezing cold at the end of it, or there is some element of pain in there, and
absolutely.
some element of intense self-reflection as well. Because I think it is important to not just focus on the good emotions, but also the kind of intense feelings as well that exist within us, and to
That,
allow them, to breathe. Yeah.
that's a very, very important thing, what a lot of people I think don't understand, and that has is also part of this liberalism. Suffering is part of life, and it's one of the most important parts of life. And as Jordan Peterson says, find the biggest burden you can find that you can carry, and carry it willingly. that
Mhm.
is that that is part. If you only want to be free, if you only want to feel fun and joy and happiness, then you are you will not live a fulfilled life. That's just how it is. You need to
Mhm.
experience suffering. It doesn't mean you have to constantly hurt yourself, like intentionally, but you have to face your demons. And if there is a hard task to do, you have to do it. Only that way you can grow. One last or two last
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
two recommendations. First of all, do you know Hillsong?
Hillsong. No.
Yeah. So Hillsong is a Christian music community, and they release CDs, and you can find them on YouTube. And I think it's, for me, it's the most beautiful Christian music that I know. My favorite
Mhm.
song is uh, from Grace to Grace. That's my
Yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
song from Hillsong. And then, yeah, I would say check out realfaith.com. There are
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
two sections on the website called Real Man, Real Women, and Real Marriage. So they
Nice. Nice.
really
Yeah.
focus on the traditional um, positions of men and women, and what a marriage is supposed to be.
That's great. Philip Tanzer, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on, and God
I'll
bless.
check out those links. Thank you.
Take care, my friend. Bye.